What's up, guys? My name is Michael. I'm with Apex Solar. I've been in the industry for a very long time, and I consistently see uh, reviews from people who have solar who have not had a good experience, or people who are interested in solar but are afraid to do it because they saw other people had bad reviews about it or whatever. And I just want to do a quick explainer video on the utility company, the state of solar, and the correct way to actually do it so that you do see money savings whenever you actually go solar. And there's a particular way that you have to do it, otherwise it really doesn't work well in Arizona. So I'm going to walk you guys through that really quickly. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. I'm going to educate you guys on the different rate plans that the utility company has, how they work, and why that's important. And a lot of people, they go solar without understanding any of these things, and then they wonder why they had a bad experience. And so first thing that I'll kind of go over with you guys here really quickly is that there is 4 different rate plans with the utility company. There's only 3 that are really popular. This EV overnight charging, you have to have an EV to even be on this plan. And honestly, the demand charge plan is better than this one, so I wouldn't really look into this one too much. But I'll walk you through the 3 big ones. First, we have the fixed energy charge plan. This is not available if you have solar, so this would be a plan that you would only be on if and before you have solar. It's not the best plan. They say that your average cost per kilowatt hour here is going to be 15.4 cents per kilowatt hour, but I have seen this much higher because this does not factor any fees, any taxes, and you have a whole lot of fees and taxes on your guys' utility bill that just inflate this like crazy. So what I've seen is the average cost per kilowatt hour coming out closer to 18 to 21 cents a kilowatt hour, just depending on those fees. The next plan is the typical time of use, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. with weekdays. The way this plan operates is you have an on-peak and an off-peak. Your off-peak is 12.3 cents per kilowatt hour, once again, before those fees and taxes. And your on-peak is 34.3 cents per kilowatt hour, which this was actually a increase. A couple years ago, we were closer to 29 cents a kilowatt hour. That was increased all the way up to 34 cents a kilowatt hour. Since I've been in the industry, I've seen this on peak go all the way from 20 cents all the way up to 34 cents. And it's not stopping anytime soon. You'll see a little bit later on that they just applied for a 14% rate increase. So we actually expect this to go even higher. But that's this rate plan. So basically you get penalized if you use power from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. The third rate plan is the time of use with demand charge. So it's the same thing, same idea, where you have an off-peak, you have an on-peak. You'll notice the off-peak is much cheaper. It's only 5.9 cents per kilowatt hour compared to 12.3 cents. And your on-peak is much cheaper. It's only 14 cents compared to 34 cents. So you would think, man, why isn't this plan the best plan? Why isn't everybody on this plan? And the truth is because of this little thing right here. It's a demand charge. And so I'll kind of walk you through what that is. But basically, on this plan, if you stack appliance use from 4 to 7 p.m., you get penalized for it. So basically, the way that it works, you can read it right here, is that on this plan, your monthly energy charge is based on the time of day and or day of the week when you use energy, plus a monthly demand charge for your highest hour of usage, right? And this is what's important. Highest hour of usage during on-peak hours, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. weekdays. This plan has the lowest rates during all other off-peak hours. It has the lowest rates in general. However, that peak demand charge can really get you. So what does that mean? It means that you can have a perfect month every single day from 4 to 7 p.m. You never stack appliances. You're not using your AC and the laundry at the same time. You're not using your AC and the microwave and the oven and all these other appliances at the same time. You're doing a good job of, like you can see here, using these appliances during different times of day. However, let's just say you do that, and then for whatever reason, one Friday you get home, you forget about it, you're cooking for the kids, you're watching TV, you know what I mean? You have all these appliances that are running, and all of a sudden, you're going to get a demand charge because you had 1 hour, just 1 hour, that you stack these appliances, and they're going to take that kilowatt of demand and multiply it by your demand charge, which in this case is $19.58, right? So for example, AC usage is going to be between 3 to 4 kilowatts of demand. Maybe you have your laundry going, that's another 2 kilowatts of demand. You got your fridge running, you got all your appliances going, you've got your computers on, you got other things going. Pretty soon here, you're up at 10 kilowatts of demand, maybe even higher, especially for high energy users. And they're going to take that 10 kilowatts and multiply it by $19.58. So boom, $200 tacked onto your utility bill, which you thought you had really cheap off peak, really cheap on peak, and all of a sudden you're paying an extra $200. And to be honest with you, if you have children, this plan's not ideal because you can't really control when you use all these things. You can try to, but like I said, it only takes one slip up of the entire month to get screwed. And this is where people are actually getting got. And this is actually the same reason why solar is not making a ton of sense for people. And I'll kind of explain that in a little bit here. So first thing I want to mention is just so you guys can see what's going on with the utility company. They just filed, or they're seeking a 14% rate hike. So this will go to the Corporation Commission. We'll find out what they actually get approved for, but it's pretty common that they reach out and they try to do these rate increases. The main thing is, like, they're going to need to get these rate increases done. It's not really an option for them. There's a bunch of different reasons why. I'll kind of walk you through some of the reasons that I've seen personally. We have an aging infrastructure. Arizona's old. There's parts of the grid that need to be upgraded. And then on top of that, you have rising operational costs. So you've got the cost of labor that's increasing, the cost of material, the cost of gas for the trucks, right? The cost of the vehicles themselves are more expensive. So that's just causing this inflation. Then you've got an increased energy demand. And a lot of people don't know this, but Arizona is a hot spot for data centers. You've got all these big companies like Google and Amazon and Facebook and, TMC and everybody, right? NVIDIA, they're wanting to move data centers to Arizona. Because this is where they can get really good labor. And the problem with that is that the more demand there is for electricity, the more the utility company needs to increase rates. And even though those are businesses, that affects us as consumers. On top of that, you have regulatory financial structure, basically just meaning like they have certain regulations that cause them to need to increase rates so they can get a return on their capital investments. And then on top of that, they're a company. They're a publicly traded company. You can actually invest in them if you want to and see a return. And shareholders want to see a return. And so if their expenses increase, they have to increase their electricity costs so they can recoup that money so their investors see that they're a profitable company. So that's kind of the idea. You're going to see these rate increases every couple of years, no matter what. We're going to see an acceleration over the next 10, 15, 20 years with AI, because AI comes with a tremendous need of electricity. And so rates are not going to slow down. They're going to increase, right? So people that have a need for lower energy bills, AI is not your friend. You're going to see a really, really big increase in utility usage and thus higher rates per kilowatt hour. And we're already averaging $230 a month in the state of Arizona. Just wait until we're averaging $300, $400, $500 just for electricity. And this is going to happen probably within the next decade or so. And so with that, a lot of people are looking, okay, how do I save money, right? So they think I'm going to look to solar. And so basically what I'm going to explain to you guys is what actually ends up happening, right? So typically what I've personally seen is people are going solar and they get given this pitch, right? And this is true for the most part, right? But they explain to you how rates, 5-10 years ago weren't that bad, 14, 15, 16 cents per kilowatt hour, and they've kind of crept up to where they are now. Now the average cost per kilowatt hour on the 4 to 7 p.m. plan is between 18 to 21 cents a kilowatt hour. And they explain to you how that's going to continue to increase, which is absolutely true. They'll present to you one of two different options, or maybe even both. The first one being a flat rate lease, where you can basically lease your equipment. You'll pay a flat rate of 14 cents a kilowatt hour 15 cents, 16 cents, maybe 12, 13, just depends on the company. And that'll be a flat rate for 25 years, right? And they explain to you that this is much better than the alternative, which is the utility company, because you're not going to see these massive rate increases, which is true. However, what they don't explain to you is that the system itself, right, and how that's actually going to work with the utility company and how that's going to operate, right? They also have like an escalator option where you can start lower, but it goes up with time, right? And if I told you this, you would say, oh, that looks amazing, right? I would much rather have solar than to have the utility company. But the problem with this is that it's missing a bit of realism, right? And so for those that don't know, the way that solar operates, and I don't know if I have that in here, the idea is that during the daytime, any power you need, you're going to use it, right? Any power you don't need, you're going to sell this back to the utility company, right? The problem is you're paying 14 cents per kilowatt hour for any kilowatt hours that you need, that you're going to get from your solar lease. But then the utility company is only going to pay you 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour for that. I should have pulled up a link to that. I don't have it here. If you want, I can send it to you. But that's their RCP rate writer right now. And what the utility company's been doing is over the last decade, every year they're decreasing the amount they're willing to buy back electricity from consumers for by up to 10%. So every year we've seen a 10% decrease in that buyback rate. So back in 2016, 2017, it was 13 cents a kilowatt hour. Now it's less than half of that 10 years later. And the problem with that is if I'm paying 14 cents for the power, and then I'm selling it to the utility company for only 6.5 cents, right? And then I turn around and I'm paying 21 cents per kilowatt hour on average, right? Which between on peak and off peak. Well, I'm losing a lot of money here, right? And the problem is most solar companies, most solar sales guys, they don't educate you on this. And so really what you would have to do is if I wanted to generate enough power to not be paying the utility company anymore, just for easy math, right? Assume I have 100 kilowatt hours of usage, right? And I go and I build a solar system that generates 100 kilowatt hours per month. Well, you would think that's a 1-for-1. It should be a wash. I shouldn't pay anything to the utility company, right? But the real is that I'm only going to use 30 to 40 kilowatt hours that I'm actually producing. The other 60 kilowatt hours I'm going to send back to the utility company, right? So what does that mean for me? It means that those 60 kilowatt hours I sent back to the utility company, they're going to give me 30 kilowatt hours worth, right? So you can see how it's an issue because they're going to give me half of the value of that kilowatt hour. So I'm going to get 30 kilowatt hours worth, but then I'm going to have to buy it at their rate, right? Which their rate per kilowatt hour is going to be on their on-peak, off-peak plan is going to be 12.3 cents per kilowatt hour if it's off-peak and 35 cents per kilowatt hour if it's on-peak, right? So I'm taking a massive loss here for every kilowatt hour I have to buy from the grid at nighttime when my system's not producing, and for every kilowatt I have to sell back to the utility company. And so this is why people are not saving money, because they think, oh, I should save money here. My cost per kilowatt hour is much less, right? But the utility is screwing homeowners that have solar by giving them an unfavorable buyback rate. And so what do we do to combat that, right? Like solar has this issue that it only produces energy during the day, right? And on top of that, you can't really even build enough solar panels on your roof to be able to offset what you would need to completely eliminate your utility bill with solar alone. And so that's where energy arbitrage comes from. Basically, energy arbitrage is the idea that you have to combine storage with solar. So if you think about it this way, if the average homeowner is on this rate plan where you pay 35 cents per kilowatt hour for on-peak and 12.3 cents for off-peak, if we could switch them over just to the demand charge plan, right, where they're only paying 5.9 cents for off-peak and 14 cents for on-peak, we're literally cutting their cost in half, right? Amazing deal. But there's one tiny problem with that. It's that you have a demand charge of $19.58 per kilowatt of demand, right? And while a lot of solar guys will want to tell you, oh, the solar will eliminate your demand, that's just simply not true. Come 6:30 p.m., 6 p.m., 5 p.m. in the wintertime, or closer to the end of the year, the sun's no longer up, or it's already down mostly. You're starting to pull a lot of power from the grid. You end up getting hit with a big demand charge on this plan if you have solar only, right? So if you don't have some type of storage, some type of battery, you're going to get hit with these massive demand charges. And if I don't have a battery, it's not in my best interest to be on this plan, so I'm going to stay on this plan. But on the regular plan, I'm paying double for electricity, for off-peak and on-peak, so it's not favorable for me, right? So what we do is we combine a battery and solar, and we have them work in unison so that the solar is generating power during the day, the battery is charging during the day from your solar or even from the grid during off-peak hours. And then when on-peak comes around, instead of pulling from the grid like you normally would, so you normally pull from the grid during on-peak because the sun starts going down, instead your battery will be programmed to offload energy during that time. So now from 4 to 7 p.m., instead of me buying power directly from APS and getting it from the grid, I'm set up to just pull from my battery, right? So what does that mean? That means that I can actually eliminate this demand charge from my utility bill. And the way the Powerwall 3s work is they can eliminate up to 10 kilowatts of demand, so up to $200 worth per month basically in demand charges consistently. And so if I can eliminate up to $200 worth of demand charges every month, and I can continuously get off-peak at the cheapest rate possible, less than half of the other plan, and on-peak at even less than that, even though I shouldn't really be paying much on-peak because my battery will be charging my home during that time. But if I can eliminate the on-peak usage and the on-peak demand, then all I'm getting power for is the cheapest rate possible. And 6 cents per kilowatt hour, by the way, is even cheaper than the solar, right? So by using energy arbitrage, by using a battery and solar, we're actually getting the most optimal rate at all times of day, which is really the goal. Now, this is kind of how that battery works. It's going to hook up to your system. Technically, you can actually do a battery with no solar, right? So you could get on this plan, and you could have a battery, and you could have that battery charging from off-peak energy instead of charging from a solar system, right? And then during on-peak, you can offload that, right? The issue you're going to run into is the battery alone will probably discharge most of its energy within 2 to 3 hours if there's no solar to supplement it, right? And so you might still have that 1 hour period or 30 minutes or whatever that you're getting hit with the demand charge. So it's not optimal. And secondary to that is that without solar, your optionality for financing, for leasing, and things like this goes away, right? When you're doing a battery only, your only two options are to pay cash or to get a loan. And typically those loans are going to be shorter terms, not as favorable with interest rates. And the reality is batteries are only under 10-year warranties, right? But if you were to add solar and add a battery, and you do the two together, and you put it on a storage lease, right? So a solar plus storage lease, you can actually extend the battery warranty for 25 years. So now you've got a 25-year warranted system, a 25-year warranted battery, and because it's a 25-year term, your monthly payment is much, much less, right? And I'm meaning for like a 8 kilowatt system with a battery, you'll be at $200 a month. Whereas if I did or just a battery alone is going to be $220 a month, right? On a loan, on a 10-year loan. And so it's really, really nice to be able to combine the two. You get the added benefit of both. You get to use the battery for storage, so it's more than just for just for the peak demand and the peak shaver program that we're doing here, and the energy arbitrage, but it also helps store energy, and that energy is usable even if there's a power outage, right? So, and which we are going to have more power outages as more data centers are built, as more demand for electricity needs to be met. We're going to see more issues with our grid over the next decade. So this is actually really important, and you're going to be able to completely optimize how you're using your energy when you're using your energy. And so this is the correct way to go solar. And so if you know somebody who has solar who says, oh, well, I'm not having a great experience, I'm not saving any money, there's one of two things that are happening. Either one, they're on the wrong rate plan. They're on that first rate plan, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., where they're paying 12 cents for off-peak and 35 cents for on-peak. Way too expensive. Or two, they're on the right rate plan, but they don't have a battery. So they're getting hit with these massive demand charges every month, right? Now, this is just the explanation of if the solar system is obviously working properly, the solar company did its job, installed it properly, it's all permitted, you have permission to operate, the system's running. And this happens all the time. I'll talk to people, they go, oh, I think my solar's not working because I'm still paying a utility bill. We'll look at it, it's producing properly. Like there's no issue with the solar system whatsoever. Solar installer did their job, but the solar salesman did a poor job of educating that homeowner on how it works with the utility company, why batteries are necessary. And sometimes homeowners say, well, I don't want a battery because I don't want it to be more expensive. And what they don't understand is it's actually less expensive, right? It looks like it's more expensive because if I show you a 100% offset, and I compare it to a 100% offset with a battery, the one with the battery is going to be more expensive every month. But what they're not explaining to you is that a 100% offset without a battery is not a 100% offset. It's not actually going to eliminate your utility bill because that buyback rate difference and because that demand charge that I'm going to get hit with every month. So the battery is so important. It actually protects you from that. And not to mention, that's when you truly see that independence where over time you're actually guaranteeing your rate for power, because not only are you generating your power, but you're storing that energy, and anytime you need it, you've got it. It's yours, right? You don't have to give it to the utility company and have them pay you nothing for it. And this works in APS and SRP, by the way. They're both very, very similar in this way, and people that are having issue with solar have the same issue in both utilities. So if you know anybody who has solar who's not happy with it, they probably need a battery, okay? And if you know somebody who's interested in looking to solar, but they've been afraid to get solar because they've heard of people not saving money and not being super happy with their experiences, this is probably why. And that's why I'm here, right? So if you guys have any questions, you're curious how the utility company works, you're curious how buyback rates work, or you're curious about solar for your home, feel free to reach out to me. You can DM me. You can send me an email. You can leave a comment on the video. But really my goal with this is to educate, because a lot of people just have no idea how it works or the importance of having a battery. And we are going to see some massive, massive rate increases. And so this is going to become more and more prevalent. And I really want to help people get ahead of the curve when it comes to solar. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm just recording this video. I'm not really used to recording videos or anything like that, but I did leave a Facebook comment the other day, and a lot of people responded saying they would really like to get a video of this. Somebody could educate them before they made the decision to get solar, or to learn why their solar is not working properly for them. So once again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Appreciate it. My name's Michael, signing off.